Welcome, everyone. So glad to see you all here today. Um, I'm particularly glad to see Sandy Miller here and keep praying for her. She contracted a bunch of different things and her computer crashed at the same time. uh, also, I was glad to see, um, I was glad to see, uh, what am I talking about here? Norman Deach here as well. Hasn't been with us for a while. If you think of it, please be praying for my sister and her family. They're down there at the Carolina coast, so they are likely going to see some effects of this hurricane down there. Well, today we're going to be doing the last in the series of teachings of Jesus in the Gospel of John. And today's lesson is called Feed My Sheep. And it's from John 21, 1 through 25. In chapters 18 and 19, John related the story of Jesus' arrest, trials, crucifixion, and burial. In chapter 20 is the glorious resurrection story. Mary Magdalene had gone to the tomb and found it empty. When she went back to tell the disciples, Peter and John ran to the tomb and saw it was empty. Though they had not understood the scripture that Jesus would rise from the dead, John states that when he saw the empty tomb, he believed. And that's John 28. Mary Magdalene was the first to see Jesus when she went back to the tomb that day. The evening of the same day, Jesus appeared to the disciples. Thomas was not there and had a hard time believing. The following Sunday, Jesus appeared again to the disciples with Thomas present. Finally, he too believed that the Lord had risen. John 20, 28 through 29. Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, have you now believed? Blessed are they who do not see and yet believe." Well, that's us. We're blessed if we believe in him. Let's read our passage for today, John 21, 1 through 14. After these things, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, who was called Didymus, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and the two others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, "I'm going fishing." They said to him, "We're also coming with you." They went out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach. Yet the disciples did not know it was Jesus. So Jesus said to them, "Children, you do not have any fish to eat, do you?" They answered him, "No." And he said to them, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find the fish." So they cast it, and then they were not able to haul it in because of the great quantity of fish. Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." So when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, for they were not far from land, but about 200 cubits away, dragging the net full of fish. So when they got to land, they saw a charcoal fire already made and fish placed on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish which you have caught." So Simon Peter went up and hauled the net to land full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples ventured to inquire of him, "Who are you?" knowing it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and the fish likewise. This was now the third time that Jesus revealed himself to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. The angel at the tomb had told the women to tell the disciples that Jesus would go ahead of them into Galilee, Matthew 28:7, and go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead, and behold, he's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. So the third time that Jesus appeared to his disciples was by the Sea of Galilee. Peter had told the 6 other disciples that he was going fishing, so the others joined him. Was Peter only fishing in order to get food? Or was he somehow reverting to his old way of life before Jesus called him? I think from the things that Jesus said that Peter was slipping back into his old way of life. Why did he do that? He'd seen Jesus and knew he was alive. Did he feel that since the old flesh and blood Jesus was not there to lead them, they might as well revert to their former occupations? He was to find out in a number of ways that this was not Jesus' plan for them. When we're discouraged or disappointed, do we tend to drift back into our old life? That's a dangerous place to be. The first thing that happened was that Peter and the others were not successful at their old livelihood, at which they used to do so well. They fished all night and caught nothing. Imagine their disappointment and discouragement when their nets came up empty. What do you think ran through their minds? Maybe they thought, this used to be so satisfying, but somehow I feel empty like this net. I used to be so successful at my worldly occupation. Why am I now a failure? Is it possible that the Lord doesn't want me to be doing this? Some Christians try to return to their old ways and find out that it doesn't feel as good as they thought it would. After a long, frustrating night, Jesus stood on the shore. They didn't recognize that he was Jesus. He asked them, friends, have you any fish? He still considered them friends, even though they'd returned to their old ways. The next lesson Peter and the others learned was when Jesus told them to throw their net on the right side of the boat. You know, that's kind of nonsense. Everyone knows that fish swim all over the place, around and under a boat. It was the same water on the right side as on the left. And yet, wonder of wonders, where they had not caught even one fish on the left side, they caught so many on the right side that they couldn't pull in the net. What was the lesson? Well, if you choose to go your own way instead of his way, you'll end up with an empty net and an empty life. If you follow his way and will, he has the power to fill your nets and your life to overflowing. So the lesson is, be about his business instead of your own, and he will take care of the rest. John seemed to be more sensitive and intuitive than the other disciples. Just as he was the first one to believe that Jesus had risen when he saw the empty tomb, he now is the first to recognize that it's the Lord standing on the shore. Peter, the impulsive one, heard John and immediately reacted. Wrapping his outer garment around him, he jumped into the water and headed for shore. The boat was only 300 feet from shore. This is another amazing thing, that they could catch that many fish so close to shore. In Palau, we would assume that they would have to be small fish or minnows. But John carefully notes in verse 11 that they were large fish. The next step in this important lesson is what they found on the shore. Jesus had made a fire burning coals, and there were fish roasting on the coals as well as bread. Where did Jesus get his fish? He had no boat or net. I think he was saying to them, you don't have to go back to your old way of life to have enough to eat. I can supply all that you need if you trust me and do my will. You know, there's also an element here of fellowship. The risen Christ calls us into fellowship with him. It reminds me of Revelation 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will dine with him, and he with me. If we invite him in, He'll come in and eat with us. There will be a deeper fellowship than we can have out there fishing with the old gang. It's like Jesus is saying, come on, guys, let's eat and talk. I've got important things to teach you, and how can I if you're off somewhere fishing? We have to quit our frantic search for fish to be with him if we want to have fellowship and learn his lessons. Jesus told them to bring some of the fish they had just caught. It seems he was trying to teach them that he has all kinds of ways to provide for our needs if we follow him. There are fish on the coals that appeared out of nowhere and fish that he directed into their empty net. Let's not underestimate the ability and ingenuity of the Lord to provide our needs, whether they're financial, physical, or emotional. We can't afford to go back to our old way of life to have our needs fulfilled. We must remember to stay in line in the calling that he has given us. I can just see Peter dragging the net ashore with 153 large fish in it. Jesus told them to come and have breakfast. He was the host at this early morning beach party. I think they got the message as they sat down to eat with him. If the net is ours and we follow our agenda, we'll come up empty. But if it's his and his agenda, it will be overflowing. Let's read the next part of the passage, John 21:15 through 25. Now when they'd finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, Tend my lambs. He said to him again a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, Shepherd my sheep. He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because he said to him the third time, Do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, Tend my sheep. Truly, truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you used to put on your belt and walk wherever you wanted. But when you grow old, you'll stretch out your hands, and someone else will put your belt on you and bring you where you do not want to go. Now he said this indicating by what kind of death he would glorify God. And when he said this, he said to him, Follow me. Peter turned around and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them, the one who also had leaned back on his chest at the supper and said, Lord, who is the one who is betraying you? So Peter, upon seeing him, said to Jesus, Lord, and what about this man? Jesus said to him, If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. Therefore this account went out among the brothers that disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he would not die, but only, If I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? This is the disciple who is testifying about these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. But there are also many other things which Jesus said, which, if they were written in detail, I expect that even the world itself would not contain the books that could be written. So it was time for Jesus to face Peter. Peter had said in front of the disciples that he, of all of them, would lay down his life for Christ. John 13:37, Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you right now? I will lay down my life for you. I think he was comparing himself with them to prove that he would be faithful even if they weren't. Then 3 times he denied that he even knew Christ. So now 3 times Jesus asked him a searching question. Isn't that something? Do you truly love me more than these? We're assuming that Jesus was referring to the rest of the disciples, but he could also have used an all-inclusive these, meaning these men, these fish and this former life of yours? There are three words in Greek which we translate love in English, but they don't all mean the same kind of love. Eros means sensual love. Phileo means affection, friendliness, or admiration. And agapao means unconditional love, like the love of God for us. Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" The first two times, Jesus asked if Peter had unconditional love for him, agape. It seems that Peter couldn't honestly say that he loved Jesus unconditionally. By now, he knew his own weaknesses. He answered, "You know that I love you like a friend, phileo." 3 times, Jesus repeated Peter's assignment: feed my sheep. It's interesting that Peter used the same simile in writing later to the elders. 1 Peter 5, 2 through 3. Shepherd the flock of God among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but voluntarily, according to the will of God, and not with greed, but with eagerness, nor yet as domineering over those assigned to your care, but by proving to be examples to the flock. I'm sure that Peter could hear these words of Jesus in his mind until his death many years later. His assignment was not to return to his old life of fishing, but to be an under shepherd of Jesus' sheep. Each time Peter answered, "Lord, you know that I love you." It's as if he were saying, "You know the depths and shallowness of my love, and it's not yet unconditional love, agape." It's instructive that the third time Jesus asked Peter if he loved him, Jesus changed the question to use the word for love that Peter had used, phileo, or friendly love. It was as if he were asking, "Do you really admire me as a friend?" Peter was hurt. I think he was hurt because Jesus asked him 3 times, reminding him of his 3 denials. And I think he was hurt because of his third question. Jesus lowered his expectations. Maybe he was testing Peter to see if he would be the braggart he was before the trial. Would Peter say, "Lord, I love you unconditionally and will gladly die for you"? Or would he be honest about his lack of deep love? Peter passed the test this time because he didn't pretend to love Jesus more than everyone and everything else. He concluded with, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus knew that Peter's love was not yet like God's love, but it would grow until Peter actually did lay down his life out of love for Jesus. 3 times Jesus had questioned the quality of Peter's love, and 3 times told him to feed his sheep. Then Jesus went on to say that Peter would demonstrate his love for Jesus by following and obeying what Jesus had told him. Love for God and the resulting ministry to the sheep. His final demonstration of his love and obedience to Jesus would be when he, instead of denying him, would die for him. Jesus told Peter that when he was young, he dressed himself and did what he wanted. But when he got old, he would not. This was a hard word. But on the other hand, it was Jesus' consolation to him that he yet had many years to serve until he was old. Herod planned to take his life, but he couldn't. The angel rescued him from prison because he wasn't old yet, and his time hadn't come. Acts 12:11. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I know for sure that the Lord has sent forth his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting." It's obvious that Jesus was indicating that Peter would be crucified. Tradition says he was crucified upside down because he considered himself unworthy to die like his Lord. John says that Jesus was indicating that the kind of death that Peter would die to glorify God. He doesn't talk about the tragedy, but about glory. John 17:1. Jesus spoke these things, and raising his eyes to heaven, he said, Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you. To die for Christ is the greatest glory we can bring him, except for living for him. Next, Jesus went back to Peter's original call, follow me. It's as if Jesus was saying, you've learned a lot about yourself and me in these years since you first answered my call by Galilee. You've learned about the cost of this call. Knowing what you do now, will you still follow me? Peter wanted to follow, but he seemed to be questioning why the Lord was picking him out for all of this interview and revelation about his death. John didn't like to use his name, so he identified himself as he always did, the disciple who Jesus loved. Then he made it absolutely clear by saying he was the one who leaned against Jesus at the Last Supper. Was Peter jealous of the one who Jesus loved? He asked Jesus, Lord, what about him? He wanted to know about John's love, John's assignment, and John's death. Jesus used very pointed, almost harsh words. If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? In other words, he was telling Peter that was none of his business. Mind your own business, Peter. Jesus' final words to Peter were, you must follow me. We're not to look around comparing ourselves with others. We're to look unto Jesus, keep our eyes fastened on him, and follow closely where he leads us. Peter had trouble with wandering eyes. When he was walking on the water, he took his eyes off Jesus and looked at his circumstances. When he was at the trial, he looked in fear and at those around him who knew he was a disciple of Jesus. If he'd kept his eyes on Jesus, maybe he wouldn't have denied him. Now he looks at John, his close fellow disciple, and wants to know what Jesus will do for him and how he will die. You know, it's none of our business what God has planned for others. All we have to know is whether we are faithful, following him, no matter what happens. After this, the rumor spread that John wouldn't die. So he carefully explains that this was not what Jesus meant. John's character would not allow him to take advantage of this chance to be someone special. He understood the point that each of us is responsible to do God's will in our lives, no matter what others do. And that's an important point, isn't it? All right, that's what I got for you guys today. And let me bring up the gallery view so